Trump's actions echo President Woodrow Wilson's then unprecedented segregation of federal offices in 1913.
Now, we got to check in on our friends over at MSNBC because some of these journalists are losing it on live television. Here is MSNBC anchor Katie Phang describing Trump's rollback of DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion, kind of, quotas and goals and identity politics run amok, that kind of stuff. Trump has rolled that back, and she went on a full monologue comparing this to segregation and putting Black people in cages. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. Take a listen for yourself.
A merit-based country. Right. On his first day back in the Oval Office, Donald Trump signed an executive order ending what he called, quote, radical and wasteful diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in federal agencies. It's unclear how many workers ultimately will be affected, but what is evident is the impact this will have on the government and the country. Trump's actions echo President Woodrow Wilson's then unprecedented segregation of federal offices in 1913. There was no official law, no executive order, just guiding policy. But that policy led to blacks being segregated or just summarily dismissed from federal positions nationwide. For example, in 1914, Wilson required a photo from all federal job applicants to make it easier for racial screening. And those black workers who managed to keep their jobs, they were often subjected to inhumane and degrading treatment. In an open letter to Wilson, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, quote, "We are told that one colored clerk who could not actually be segregated on account of the nature of his work has consequently had a cage built around him to separate him from his white companions of many years." Take a second to let that sink in. A cage.
Guys, let that sink in. A cage. Girl, your Delulu is showing. She actually just got up on one of America's largest cable news networks and did a whole segment comparing ending affinity groups and racial preferences for certain groups and a lot of this DEI stuff that wasn't even very prevalent in the federal government until it really exploded, at least under Biden, because one of the first things he did was come in, sign executive orders instructing federal agencies to implement and expand DEI initiatives. So to some extent, what Trump is doing is taking us back to how the federal government worked in 2019. And she actually just compared this to resegregating the federal government and putting people in cages. That's not actually the same thing, babe. And you come off as unhinged and hysterical when you make these kinds of absurd comparisons. I support Trump's rollback of DEI initiatives, but I'm sure there's a reasonable take or pushback that maybe he went too far in some ways. This ain't it, though. This is absurd. And I can't speak on behalf of the Black community, but I don't know how that's not offensive to suggest that colorblindness and meritocracy and no more racial preferences is somehow similar to the horrors of segregation in the Jim Crow era. Is that not trivializing and politicizing and exploiting the historic trauma of Black people in America? To me, it seems like it is. To be clear, guys, getting rid of DEI doesn't mean allowing discrimination. Discrimination on the basis of race or gender or anything like that is still not allowed inside the federal government. This is very clear from the Civil Rights Act, which Trump hasn't and can't remove unilaterally. Not that he even has ever said he wants to. The federal government still has to hire without racial discrimination against any group, still has to make sure the workplace is not racially discriminatory towards anyone. What they're rolling back is all the over-the-top identity stuff, the microaggression trainings, the self-segregated affinity groups, the diversity goals and target quotas and all this kind of stuff, some of which was truly harmful. Like the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, had a huge scandal where they were lowering standards for air traffic control which, guys, their jobs are kind of important for safety to get more diversity. I'll link to a source about that if you're interested in more, but it's a crazy story and exactly the kind of example of what Trump is trying to end. And no, that is not bringing back segregation. Y'all sound demented. Dude, it is so sad because part of me wishes I could be a cable news host and thinks I do a really good job. But like the kind of people that get these opportunities and these platforms that are so bad at the job and are so delulu, and yet someone like me just will not get a shot to just won't. It won't happen. It's kind of demoralizing sometimes. But instead, we're building our own cable news channels here on YouTube and with podcasts and new media. So that's why their ratings keep going down. And our ratings on the Brad versus Everyone podcast keep going up. But what do you guys think? Are you surprised to kind of see this thing from MSNBC, or had you hoped they had learned some lesson? I hope that, but inside I knew they hadn't. So can't say I'm particularly surprised, but you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. I do read the comments and I love hearing what you guys have to say. Do hit that like button while you're at it.